What's going on, pilots? I hope you're all preparing for Titanfall. I personally can't wait until March the 11th or March the 14th is when I've got to wait until, because I'm in the UK and the official release isn't until 3 days later for us. But I've been absorbing just about every nugget of information that I can. I've watched pretty much all the developer interviews, read all kinds of forum and Reddit posts, and also scrutinised every single piece of gameplay that's been released. So I thought I'd take some time today to do a kind of a trailer breakdown or analysis to go through and explain every piece of information that I can to those of you who are quite interested in the game but maybe might have missed a few points. So I'm going to go through the Angel City trailer to begin with, pausing as we go, and I'll talk about what kind of stuff we can expect. So as you can see in the footage, this is a great example of the campaign multiplayer that Respawn's developed, where they kind of made a multiplayer only game but also thrown in some of those elements of story mode. Story mode is based on a series of gameplay on each map fighting for either the IMC or the militia, and the outcome of each game determines the story progression, and there's two different endings depending on which faction you've played for, so there's kind of like two chances to play the game through. This is played with the usual 6v6 real players plus the rest of the AI that we see in the gameplay. And you can team up with your buddies and do this in a little party, so that should be quite interesting. So while this is story mode, there's also the normal multiplayer modes as well, so you don't have to go through the story if you don't want to, but the multiplayer modes are pretty similar, just with less story aspects. And there's all the typical modes such as attrition, which is the name for TDM, as well as hardpoint domination, as the name suggests, is pretty much like domination in other games. What's great about the normal multiplayer games is that they're also very similar in that they've got those short intros where pilots kind of jump into battle from the dropship, you don't just appear somewhere on the map. So this is a great opportunity to talk about the minimap for what it's worth. It might give you a little heads up for when you play your first game, but as you can see, all the Titans are like this teardrop shape. Then you've got the AI grunts, which are these little dots, and then you see the Titans, which are these larger arrows. We can also see we've got these NPC characters telling you what's going on, and that's actually the same for multiplayer as well. These guys tell you cool little things like when you're approaching an objective, they'll say, look right in front of you, there's an objective in that building. And it keeps you posted on things like that your Titan's going to be ready in 60 seconds. And they also praise you with cool phrases like nice move, which all adds to the cool factor of this game. At the start of this Angel City gameplay, we can see the EVA 8 shotgun in action. So this is one of the primary weapons, then you also get a pistol as a secondary. There's both a semi-automatic and a fully automatic pistol. Then you also select an anti-Titan weapon as part of your loadout. In this case, it's the Archer rocket launcher, which we'll see in action a little bit later, and that's selectable via the D-pad. I actually saw a lot of people in the alpha when I was watching some of that leaked footage. A lot of people probably didn't realise this and were trying to take down Titans using their rifle or primary weapon, which obviously isn't quite as powerful as an anti-Titan weapon, so that's definitely something to keep in mind when you play your first game. In your loadout you also have grenades of some kind. We've seen the frag and arc grenades so far, arc grenades being more effective against machines. Then in your loadout there's also extra kit, such as a cloak which makes you invisible to enemies. Now this is only really effective against Titans. Enemy pilots can still see you as like a ghostly blur, but for Titans it's much harder to see when everyone's running around like little ants. Other kit options that we've seen is a power cell that allows your tactical ability to recharge faster, for example your cloak. Then I've also seen a minion detector which highlights all enemy AI on the map, and an enhanced parkour kit which allows for extended wall run and wall hang time. Wall hanging is when you can perform a melee while running along a wall, and you can hang there and open fire on enemies from above. Then a couple more options we've seen is the dome shield battery, which extends the amount of time your Titan has this blue glow around it, which we'll see later on, and also the stim, which boosts movement and health regen. Those things we'll get to see more of in the beta and in the full game. We've got a great example now of the executions that can be performed as a pilot. So when you run up and melee someone from behind, it executes the player by breaking the neck. And there's also a different move if you execute someone from the front, it performs a little karate kick, which is pretty cool. Now this is where we get to see that Archer rocket launcher in action, the anti-Titan weapon. This particular one requires a lock-on, but there's other ones like the Sidewinder that can free fire missiles. It's also worth noting that you can see on your HUD that the Titan's health is depicted with a yellow bar plus the little line above it that shows how much shield it's got left. You have to deplete the shield first before being able to reduce its health. and it's worth noting that his shields do regenerate, so that's something we'll talk about later when we see some Titan on Titan action. Watching these official gameplays is a great example of how the wall running and double jumping works. Try and take notice of how the devs move around the map, because in the alpha's leaked gameplay, so a lot of people playing it as if it was a typical shooter, people just running around on the ground from cover to cover. But as the devs said in an interview, it's funny watching people when they first play. They run around on the ground as if it's Call of Duty, but the devs immediately hook up onto a wall and start traversing the map much faster with these parkour abilities. This is not only much cooler, but it also keeps you out of danger from enemy AI, and also puts you in more advantageous positions against Titans to rodeo them and avoid being crushed. So you can see this guy's finally taken out this Titan with his Archer rocket launcher, and when your Titan's doomed, you've got the option to eject or go down with the machine. There's actually also Titan perks that allow for auto eject or to have your Titan go nuclear and blow up. And what's really epic is if you kill a Titan by rodeoing it and the pilot ejects, you also fly up in the air, and then you get to engage in some kind of Matrix style gunfight as you're falling back down to earth. Ejecting is also a great way to make up ground and get to where you want to be, so you can either drop back down and rodeo an enemy like we saw in the first gameplay trailer, or you can find yourself a high rooftop to assess the battlefield. Unlike this guy who ends up getting jump kicked, which gives our player just enough points to call in his Titan. Now, just in case you didn't know, everyone gets a Titan in Titanfall. There's a little counter that counts down from 2 minutes, and you can speed that up by getting kills and points, so you can either go around farming AI players to speed up that 2 minutes, or just by capturing objectives, taking out enemy players and taking down enemy Titans. You also get multiple Titans per game, so definitely keep an eye out on your HUD and listen to what those announcers are saying, because I saw a lot of people in the alpha totally ignoring that they got a Titan and didn't even call it in. So this is when we get to experience the epic moment when you call in your Titan and it enters into the atmosphere with this awesome sound effect. And this is where we can see that blue shield, which one of the extra kit options allowed for an extended period of time when your Titan was protected. You've got the option then to either embark your Titan yourself, or it'll go into auto mode and run around on the map itself. I've heard that while the AI grunts are pretty useless, the AI controlled Titans are actually pretty good, so there's no real disadvantage to not controlling your Titan. If anything, it's more advantageous you running around as a pilot and leaving your Titan to do its own thing. Talking about Titans, there's 3 different types of Titan class that we've seen so far: the Atlas, the Ogre and the Strider. Each one has had its own trailer from Hammond Robotics. But the one we see in this gameplay is the Atlas, and this particular one is using the XO16 battle rifle chain gun, Vortex shield, which we'll see in action a little bit later on, as well as the rocket salvo. Just like with pilots, you can also change your Titan's loadout to equip a kit option, such as a faster shield regen, slower deterioration when doomed, as well as the auto eject that I was talking about. There's also an extra ability with Titans named the Core, so you can have such as the Damage Core or Nuclear Core, which activate for a short period of time, and Damage Core increases your damage, and the Nuclear Core allows you to explode when your Titan is destroyed. So when you're in your Titan, you can see that the HUD has completely changed. You can now see your shield and health bar right in the middle, as well as the different options to activate these different abilities. So we see now an example of when an enemy pilot jumps onto the back of a Titan. That's known as rodeoing. That's when the pilot pulls off that hatch and starts blasting away at the Titan's robot brains. If you're actually in your Titan and controlling it, you'll know when this happens, because not only will you hear the thump of them landing on your head, you'll also have the AI telling you that there's a pilot being detected, and it's advised that you get out and deal with them. Alternatively, as you can see in this gameplay, you can rely on your teammates to pick them off. Or there's actually another piece of equipment that we've heard of named the Electric Smoke. That's a defense upgrade for Titans that microwaves enemy pilots into a red mist. So Titanfall is all about this cat and mouse gameplay between Titans and pilots. And the best way for a pilot to outrun a Titan is to use that agility to wall run and escape, which unfortunately didn't work out too well for this fella. But there's also areas of the map where Titans can't go, such as those indoor areas, and there's also areas where the Titans are dominant in those large wide open areas. But as you can see, the maps are all designed with lanes that the Titans have to follow, so it makes it easy to be able to get up onto a rooftop and drop down onto the Titan's head to perform those rodeo attacks. Now we get to see a different weapon in action now, the R101 assault rifle that this guy swapped out from a dead body. All these primary weapons can be customised with different sights and attachments, and this is also a great example of the Sidewinder anti-Titan weapon that shoots out those free-fire missiles. So one thing to bear in mind that we saw from people playing the alpha that you'll want to remember for when you play your first game is that a lot of people were fighting Titan versus Titan as if they're invincible, but even though you're in this massive robot, it still requires some strategy to avoid being killed. In your Titan, you've got the dash ability, which is those two lines in the middle of the screen, which shows how many boosts you've got left. This allows you to quickly strafe side to side so you can duck behind cover, and what you really want to do is keep an eye on your shield, then retreat out of action to allow them to regenerate. Otherwise, once your shields are down, it's not going to take long for you to end up getting blown up. This is where we get to see that vortex shield in action, where you can absorb enemy fire and then send it back. And this actually requires some key timing, especially if there's two Titans facing off each other, both using the same equipment. As well as having these main weapons, Titans can also melee attack and get into a little mech boxing match. But if you perform a melee attack when the enemy's just on its last legs, you'll perform one of those finishing moves, and the animation for this all depends on which type of Titan you're using. So in this case it's the Atlas, so he rips out the enemy pilot from its chest and tosses him to one side. Ideally though, when your Titan's just about doomed, you'll probably want to perform an eject maneuver by pressing the X button 4 times, then you use that opportunity to rodeo the enemy Titan and blow its brains out in revenge. So the score limit has been reached in this particular gameplay, but that's not the end of the game just yet. There's now the epilogue mode, which is when all the defeated players have to retreat to get to the dropship, and the winners have to finish them off for extra points. If you die during this section, it's then game over for you, and you have to watch the rest of the minute or so epilogue in third person mode, just switching between enemy players. You also get to see another gameplay mechanic where you can hitch a ride on the back of a friendly Titan and use them as cover to avoid being killed. And now we've got one final example of how that wall running allows you to evade enemy AI grunts and make up ground much faster than it would be just running along the ground. So I hope this little trailer breakdown analysis helped give you some extra information about Titanfall. If you did learn anything new, or if you just enjoyed my video, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up just to help spread the word and share the video with your friends. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button on my channel if you want to stick around for all the Titanfall content from myself. I can't wait to get started on the various guides and tips videos that I've got in mind. So stay tuned for those after its release. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all later.